So today we're working on root chakra. So I know some of you guys are familiar with what the chakras are. Maybe some of you are not. Is there anyone who has no idea what that is? You guys all know. You've been coming to my class a long time. You know what that is. So basically, there are different energy centers in the body. Just kind of keep it simple. And we're focusing on the first one tonight, which is Muladhara. And that means root. So it's the root chakra. It has to do with like the pelvic floor, the tailbone area, the base of our spine. I'll be talking to you a little bit about how these different areas of the body, the chakras, can be imbalanced. So we might have excessive energy in any of the chakras or deficient energy. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we get into the practice. Each of the chakras is associated with one of the 5 elements that we talk about in yoga and Ayurveda. And the first chakra is earth. And so it's all about grounding, stability, feeling safe, kind of slowing down, finding some stillness. And especially if we're deficient in earth energy, this will be a good practice because we're going to focus on replenishing the earth energy. And I think as a culture, we just sort of live in an environment that tends to deplete our earth element. Because think about it, we're just on the go a lot. You know, we don't really spend a lot of time in stillness as an American culture, like some other cultures do, but it's not really something that's built into our lives. And if we are still, we're looking at screens or watching Netflix and all the fun things like that. So our mind, even though we might be physically still, our mind is still being stimulated. And so to cultivate more earth element, we have to still the body and still the mind and slow the breath down, and that'll help us replenish. So if we're deficient in earth element, we tend to have imbalance in the other elements, right? So it's like a spectrum, a continuum. So there's earth, water, fire, air, and space. So if we have deficiency in earth, we tend to have more of the others. So people who are deficient in earth tend to be more vata in their Ayurvedic constitution. So they might have more air and space in their constitution. When you have more air and space, you're not so grounded, right? You might feel more anxious, you can't sleep, you can't sit still, let's go, go, go. And that can come with its own problems. You know, when we have too much air element and we're not grounded, that can affect things like our nervous system, our immune system. So earth is like replenishing, earth is nourishing. So if we want to be nourished, we want to focus on that earth element, not so much the air element. Air element is more expansive and open and light. And then in the middle, we have the fire, right? So sometimes if we have deficient earth, we could also have excess fire. So it's all a continuum. And most of us have a particular constitution, right? So if you don't know your dosha, I recommend doing a little quiz and finding out what your main makeup is. So my main makeup is fire and water. So I'm a pitta constitution. I do tend to also have vata as my secondary. So I tend to be deficient in earth. So I have to work on that, right? I have to work on my grounding. I have to work on slowing down and stillness to balance myself out. Now, if you're more of an earth person already, you might need more of the fire or more of the air and space to balance yourself out. So eventually we kind of get to all of them, but today we're going to focus on the root, so we're going to be closer to the ground. There's a couple tricky transitions tonight, so do the best you can. We're going to stay low to the ground, but there's kind of some interesting things we're going to do tonight that we're going to be moving around on the mat a bit. So it's going to be challenging with the camera, and I'm not in person, and I'm not going to be able to like really see you as well. So just do the best you can, and it's nothing crazy, but you might need to look up at the camera to see some of the things. Okay, so we're going to be starting on our bellies tonight. There's only a certain number of ways we can start a yoga class. We could be on our backs, we could be on our bellies, we could be seated, we could be standing. That's about it, right? Today we're going to be on our bellies. So maybe you want to have a blanket down because we're going to be there for a while. And then all we really need tonight are some blocks and blankets, maybe something to sit on later. And we'll get started. All right, so questions, comments on anything before I mute?
Nope.
All right, so let's get some earth element going. Come down onto your belly. And feel free to unmute if you need to. All right, so you might stack up your palms and rest your head down. And while you settle in there, I'm going to share a little bit more about root chakra. And by the way, if anybody wants, I have a nice little kind of handy guide that I have all made up on Google Docs. If anybody wants it, I can send it out to you. And it has all of this information about the root chakra. Okay, so coming to breathe into your lower abdomen, you can just rest your head down for now. We're going to stay here for a few minutes. So being belly down is one of the most grounded positions we can be in. It feels safe, it feels stable, no risk of falling, right? We're close to the ground. The front body is protected, so it has that feeling of safety. We're in stillness, and we're slowing the breath down. These are all qualities of earth: slow, stable, safe. Nourishment. So think about the ground nourishing you. And there's this kind of reciprocal energy that happens between our bodies and the earth. So we can sort of surrender our body to the earth and let go. And at the same time, the earth energy sort of comes up into us. Especially when we do things like root down into the ground, we feel that sense of kind of buoyancy that happens. When we ground ourselves, we actually get lighter. So it's sort of a paradox. The location of the Muladhara would be the base of the spine, the tailbone, I mentioned those. Also our legs and our feet. Relates to our central nervous system, our sciatic nerve, and even the psoas that we talked about last week. So if the pelvis is imbalanced, we're not going to feel as grounded. We want things to kind of line up, and then we feel more grounded. Each of the chakras is associated with a particular organ and glandular area. And this is associated with our adrenals. So we know that if we're very vata and we're go, 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 we're kind of running on adrenaline. And then we deplete our earth element and we can feel burned out. So we want to be mindful of that. If we have too much earth element, we might feel heavy, lethargic. We might feel like we're stuck, very stuck in the mud, stagnant. We might be afraid of change or rigid. We might have a limited point of view. And if we're deficient, we're lacking an earth element, we might feel scattered or ungrounded, anxious. We might feel needy, fearful. Difficulty achieving our goals, difficulty with stillness. We might have poor boundaries, and we might dissociate from our bodies. It's very much concerned with survival and fight, flight, freeze. Also relates to our ancestry and everything that came before us. It's our roots, right? The ancestry we came from influences who we are today. So let's take 3 more breaths down into the lower belly. See if we can continue kind of a low, slow breath tonight. Slower breath, and we'll also eventually focus on long exhales. The longer exhales can feel grounding as well. Okay, so now stack your palms under your forehead, and we did some of this work last week. Chin comes in, and we're gonna lift the back of the head up, and we're gonna lift the right leg up. So right leg up, back of the head up, and then release all the way down. And then other side, lift the back of the head, lift the left leg up, and then release down. Let's do that a couple more rounds on each side. Alternating leg lifts with the head lift. So we're going to inhale as we lift and exhale to melt down. One more round. Go slowly. So we're cultivating earth, so we want to slow our actions down. And if we're deficient in earth, it might be hard for us to slow down. Okay, go ahead and pause and stack your right palm on top and turn your head to look toward your right elbow. So our head is turned toward the side. Now, from here, this is a somatic movement. We're going to lift the right elbow off the ground, just the elbow and the arm, and then release. So let's do that a few rounds. So just lift your right elbow up. Think about using your shoulder blade to lift that elbow and release. One more time. Lift the elbow and let it go. Okay, now adding on, lift the elbow. Now lift the right hand and keep the head on the hand and lift up into a little twist to your right. And then come all the way back down, relax. Let's do that again. Lift the elbow, lift the hand and the head. You're coming off the ground, a little bit of a twist, and then let it go. Now we're gonna add in the opposite leg. Lift the elbow, lift the head, the hand, and the left leg. And then release. And we're staying on this same side, lifting the right arm, head, hand, and the left leg. And you might notice that there is a connection between your right shoulder and your left glute and hip. Let's do this a few more rounds on this side. Helps balance out some of the musculature of our back. And as I said, there's connections between the right and left sides in like an X pattern. So there's some fascia that connects our right shoulder to our left hip in an X shape. Okay, go ahead, come down and pause, turn your head to center. And when we do these pauses, take a moment to breathe low and slow in your belly. Feel the ground beneath you and just have a sense of surrendering into the ground. Now we're going to do that on the other side. So left palm on top. Turn your head to the left to face the left elbow. I'm going to turn around so I'm not facing away from you guys. And we're just going to lift the arm and the elbow up using your shoulder blade and then release. Okay, let's do that. 2 more rounds. Lift. Release. One more time. Okay, now we're going to add the head, lifting the head and the arm same time. Little twist. And let it all go down, back down to the ground. Melt, release. And repeat. Lift up, little twist, and relax. Again, notice the connection between left shoulder and right hip and glute. Might be able to feel those right lower back muscles turn on. Now adding your opposite leg. So as you come up, lift the right leg up and then melt down. Lifting the elbow, the head, the arm, the opposite leg, and release. Now, as you're doing this, try to keep the leg neutral. So try not to rotate the leg, keep the kneecap facing the floor. And let's do 2 more on this side. This also works a bit on the neck. Last one. All right, come back to center, head comes back to center, give your hips a little wiggle. Okay, so staying down here on your belly, let's go ahead and take the right knee out to the side. Right knee out to the side, and just rest yourself down, still kind of connecting to the ground beneath you. Nice soft breath in the belly. Move some things out of the way because we're gonna need to move a lot. So make sure you don't have a whole lot of stuff in your way. We're gonna move a bit tonight. Now from here, you can keep the knee bent. If you want to go a little further, take that leg straight out from your hip. So the big toe side of your foot is on the floor and the leg is straight out to the side. Let's take another breath here. Okay, prop up onto your forearms and that leg still out to the side. It's either bent or straight. And we're gonna kind of do a little thread the needle twist. So you might wanna have something for under your head here, because as we come into the twist, some of you might feel like you need support. So I'm gonna take my left arm and thread it behind the right. And then I'm gonna let my head come down either to the floor or a prop. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pillow because I think I could use that tonight. Okay. So legs still out to the side, but now we're in a little bit of a twist. I've threaded my left arm through. Now take your top hand, your right hand, let's hold the foot with both hands if you can. Now, if you can't get the foot, no worries. Just hold on to your ankle or your shin, okay? Or just reach in that direction. So it's almost like a side forward fold here. Hold that for 1 more breath. We'll spend a lot of time on the ground tonight. And now from here, take your right arm, reach it up toward the ceiling, and then open it all the way open into a twist. And if it makes it to the ground, great. If it doesn't, let your hand rest on your top hip or top rib cage. You might still be holding the foot with your other hand. Roll open into the twist. Let's hold here 1 more breath. Good, and then we're gonna come back around to the side and we're gonna stack both knees up. So now I'm on my side, both knees are stacked. From here, your upper body is gonna turn into Sphinx pose. So keep the legs to the side, rotate and come into Sphinx pose. So we're in like a Sphinx twist. So this is a new one. Haven't done this one before. Knees are still pointing to the right, press into your arms, and then isometrically pull your arms apart from each other. Take a breath or 2. Now you might stay here, or we're gonna take the top leg and straighten it toward the back of your mat. Bottom leg is still bent. Again, turn your belly toward the floor. pull your arms apart isometrically. Now from here, that bottom leg is still bent. Some of you might straighten it out to the side. So now both legs are maybe straight. Can always just do what you can if anything's too much. Now from here, come up on your palms. Good, and still turn your belly toward your mat. Okay, watch this for a moment. We're gonna start to bend the elbows. Bring the chest down like a push-up and let the back leg lift up off the ground. Maybe your chest and your head come down and then push yourself back up. Okay, so let's try that a few times. Bend the elbows, lower down, lift the back leg, and then come back up. So this is similar to a fancy arm balance that some classes might do, but we're doing it in a supported way. Lower down, back leg lifts, and come back up. So we know, like a bird, it's got to press into the ground before it can fly. So we're going to play with that a little bit tonight. One more time. And come back up. Okay, now watch for a moment. I'm going to start to turn toward my back leg, and I'm in a wide leg seated position. Did you get it? That's one of those tricky transitions. So you'll be facing a little bit toward the back corner of your mat. And now let's take a few side bends. Inhale, reach your arms up, and side bend toward one leg, and then side bend toward the other leg. And let's go back and forth a few times. This is kind of a little creative sequencing tonight. So do the best you can with trying to follow along on the screen. This one's a little easier if we were in person, but I think you guys can get it. Okay, now we're gonna come all the way back to the center. Okay, we're still in that wide leg position, but we're gonna bend both knees. Put the feet flat. Drop your knees toward the front of your mat. So now we're kind of in the Z-sit or the messy pigeon, sometimes I call it, or deer pose. We're gonna turn toward the front of your mat. So for me, that's my left knee, and we're gonna fold over that knee. Okay, so do the best you can. If you wanna stay up higher, you can. Otherwise, fold over that leg. Take another breath or two here. Good, now we're gonna come all the way onto our side, both legs stacked up, and rest your head on your bottom hand. Flex both feet, squeeze the inner thighs together. So earth element has to do with everything solid in our bodies. So our muscles, our bones, our strength. Earth element gives us our strength. So we're gonna flex the feet, squeeze the legs together, and firm your glute muscles. Kind of keep your tailbone pulling into your body. And then from here, lift the top leg and bend the knee and place your foot into like a side tree pose. So your foot rests on your bottom leg. And then again, squeeze those glutes, squeeze the hips, tone the belly, and that gives us that stability in our pelvis so we can balance here. If I let all that go, I'm going to tend to roll back. So firming everything up gives us more earth element. You can stay here or lift the knee up in toward your chest and extend the leg up toward the ceiling. Some of you might be able to reach up and hold your foot. If you can't get your foot, hold your shin or your ankle. And then once you've got that, firm your glutes, firm your hips again, and press that bottom leg into the floor. Good, one more breath. And then we're gonna slowly release and bring that foot back down. Roll to your belly with that knee out to the side. And we're back in Sphinx pose with the knee to the side. Yeah. Okay, lower down, slide your hands back, lift up to cobra, or maybe straighten your arms. And then release, slide that leg back and pause. Give your hips a little wiggle. And then slide your hands back, press up into tabletop position. Grab a block. Don't worry, we're going to do that whole sequence on the other side in a bit. Block between your inner thighs. And we're going to squeeze the block. So when we squeeze the block between the inner thighs, we strengthen the pelvic floor, which is our root. It's the base of our spine. Now, cat-cows with the block squeeze. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. And as you round, really squeeze that block. Maybe lift your abdomen, your pelvic floor. And repeat. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. And let's take 3 more cycles. Last one. Come back to neutral, take your block out, and move back to child's pose. From here, slide your hands back, and if you can, you're gonna sit up on your heels. And if you can't get that far, you can keep your hands down. You can also sit up on a block if you wanna modify. We're gonna sit on our heels. You can stay here or bring your hands behind you, walk them back, and then try to lift your knees, and we'll stretch out the tops of the feet a bit. So the root chakra has to do with the legs and the feet as well, so we'll focus on that a bit. And then walk it forward, back to hands down, tuck your toes under, hug your inner feet together, especially your inner heel. You can stay here or come all the way up, and we'll sit on our heels with our toes tucked under. And then squeeze those inner heels together, inner ankles together. Hold that for 1 more breath. Again, you can always stay here if it's too much. Good, and then hands down. Try to lift your knees, and we come into a squat. Now, if squatting is too much for you, you have the option of sitting on a block. Okay, so if you can, you're in a squat, take your knees wide, and then fold inside your legs. Squatting is really kind of the quintessential earth element kind of pose. 1 more breath. And then bring your knees back together and down, walk it back out to tabletop, and then come back down onto your belly, back to where we started, and then we're gonna do that whole sequence on the other side. So take a couple breaths down on your belly. I'm gonna flip around so I'll be facing you. Let's take 1 more breath there, and then when you're ready, bring your left knee out to the side. And you can just have your head resting down for now. Take a breath or 2 with the knee to the side. And then those of you who want to are going to straighten that leg straight out from the hip, and the foot is kind of flexed. Big toe side of the foot faces the floor. Okay, hold it there for a breath. And then we'll prop up on the forearms. Whether that knee is bent or straight, we're gonna thread the right arm through and maybe have something for under your head, blanket or pillow. And we're gonna come onto the side and maybe hold the foot with both hands. And that other leg, we can still kind of keep it flexed, rooting into the ground. We're in that side kind of forward fold. And then from here, top arm reaches up toward the ceiling. And we'll open it up into the twist. Maybe that arm comes to the floor. Maybe it needs to rest on your top hip or rib cage. If you can, try to get your chest to face open toward the ceiling. Let's take one more breath here in the open twist. And then we're going to bring that arm back up and around. And we're going to be on our side with both knees stacked up. So stack both knees on top of each other. They're bent at about a 90-degree angle. And then we're going to come around into our Sphinx twist. So come onto your forearms with the knees to the side. Press down into your forearms, your palms, and isometrically drag your arms apart. Stay here or take your top leg and reach it toward the back of your mat. That'll maybe increase that intensity of the twist a little more. Keep turning your belly, your ribs, your shoulders toward the floor. And drag your arms apart asymmetrically. Good, now you can stay there again or straighten the other leg. So now both legs are straight and we're gonna come up onto our palms. Again, if anything's too much, back up to where you were, comfortable. And then we're gonna do that little push up with the leg fly. So we'll lower down and lift the back leg up. And then press yourself back up. And let's do that a few times. Yeah, you guys are getting it. Very nice. Looks good. And come back up. Let's do 2 more rounds. Keep twisting as you do this. One more. Good, now push all the way up and we're gonna turn towards your back leg and come into that wide leg seated position. Good, inhale, reach your arms up and we're gonna side bend to each side a few times. Good, come back to the center. Bend both knees, feet flat. And then we're gonna drop the knees toward that front of the mat. Turn now the right knee, we're gonna fold over the right knee. Hopefully that all went well. Looks good from here. Take a few breaths in this little pigeon fold. This is my favorite kind of practice when I feel like my earth is depleted and I feel a little burned out, a little exhausted. I like to do a practice where I stay close to the ground and I find it really replenishing. Okay, from here, we're gonna slide that bottom leg out and we're gonna be on our side with the legs stacked up and you can rest your head on your bottom arm. Flex the feet, firm the inner thighs together, firm your tailbone in, firm your hips and your glutes. And then we're gonna lift the top leg, bend the knee and place the foot on the bottom leg for side tree pose. And once you're there, once again, firm up your hips, your glutes, and pull your tailbone in forward into your body. Bottom leg roots down into the ground, getting that feeling of strength, which is the earth element. You can stay here or lift the knee and extend that leg straight up. Some of you might be able to hold the foot. And then bottom leg, really root it down. Keep that tailbone firming in. Good, release your hand, bring that foot back into tree pose. And then we're gonna roll onto the belly. Knee is out to the side. Slide your hands back, lift up, either cobra or straighten the arms. And then lower down, slide the leg back, press into tabletop position, grab your block. 5 cycles of cat-cow with the block. And as you exhale, really squeeze the block, lift the belly, lift the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor has a lot to do with root chakra, but also trauma and stress. So if we've had any kind of trauma, the pelvic floor tends to kind of tighten up and we get some possible dysfunction there. So we want to work on balancing that out with our practice. And after you've had 5 cycles, go ahead, take your block out, move back to your child's pose once again. Okay, so we are going to take the knee blanket off the mat now. So go ahead and come on up and clear your mat because we'll need a little stick for the next part of the sequence. We still are going to stay low to the ground. Have your blocks at the top of your mat. You may want them. And come into tabletop position. Okay, from here, right foot forward, coming into a low lunge. And bring that right foot to the edge of the mat. So it's like lizard lunge. You can stay up on your hands, or you could come down onto your forearms using your blocks, or come all the way to the floor. Up to you. Let's take a few breaths there. This also opens up a bit through the inner thighs, which is very much connected to that root chakra. Inner thighs tie into our pelvic floor. Now from here, come back up on your hands if you dropped it down. And I'm going to move my blocks out of the way. Take your right hand to the back of your right heel. So you're going to kind of wedge your thumb and index finger around your Achilles tendon, right in the back of your foot. Okay, from here, lean back a little bit and see if you can dip your right shoulder down behind your knee and then rebend your knee. So it's a deep lizard lunge. If that's too much, go back to where you were before. Press your arm and leg into each other. Hold that for one more breath. Stay here or lift your back knee if you want a little more action. Now we'll stay for another breath or two, pressing the arm and leg into each other. Maybe that back knee is off the ground. That could be pretty demanding, so if you're feeling depleted, keep the knee down. Good, slowly release, step that foot back, child's pose. Back up into tabletop, step your left foot forward to the edge of your mat. And then either staying up on your hands or coming onto your forearms for a few breaths with or without your blocks. So I'm just going to show it with the blocks. Take a few breaths. Maybe noticing sensations of the inner thigh area, especially that left inner thigh. Okay, come back up onto your hands, maybe lose those blocks. And we're gonna lean back a little bit, shift your hips back so we can get that hand to hold the back of your heel and then rebend. Try to get your shoulder under your knee. If that's too much, just do the regular lizard. Press your arm and leg into each other, reach your chest forward. You can stay here for another breath. And then maybe you're going to continue to stay here, or you're lifting that back knee if your energy is not too depleted. Or just if it's too much, right? So make choices based on what feels right in your body. Last breath. And then knee down, step that foot back, child's pose. All right, walk your hands back towards your feet. Bring your knees together, tuck your toes. Keep a block nearby. You can stay here with your toes tucked and your hands down, or you're coming up into your squat. So you're going to lift the knees. Maybe you're sitting on a block and just doing a squat. Maybe you're going to bow in like we did before and get low to the ground with a nice deep squat. Good, now you might stay here working on your squat, or you could try crow pose, and I'm going to show a modification with the block because this pose has always been my nemesis. So you might start to shift forward and start to bring your head toward the block. And you can shift yourself forward and back. And eventually, maybe put your forehead on the block and see if you could get your feet off the floor. Some of you might be able to hold it and stay in that crow pose. Some of you are just going to shift in and out. Some of you are maybe just going to work on your squat. So you have lots of options. There you go. Very good. Okay. So from the squat, go ahead and bring those knees together and sit back on your heels. Some of you might need to sit on the block. Inhale, reach your arms up. Interlace your palms, press up. Twist to your right. Bringing your left hand to the outside of your leg. Good, inhale, reach up and twist the other way. Good, inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands down, tabletop position. Okay, we are going to repeat that lunge, the lizard lunge, but this time we're going to try and fly. So remember we did that little thing on the floor with that lifting of the legs. This is similar. I want you guys to watch, okay? So I'm going to use a block to support the back leg. So I'm going to come into my lunge, my lizard lunge. So just watch this before you try it. I'm going to lift the back leg and put the block under my back thigh. Okay, and you might stay right there. Okay, and that back leg maybe could lift up, fly off the ground. That might be fun. If you want to go further, you're going to take your right hand back to that back of your heel. Try to get your shoulder under. If you can get your shoulder under, put your right hand down. That might be your pose. Some of you are going to start to sneak your right foot forward and lift that foot, turn it in, and then lift the back leg. So it's a modified arm balance. This is a tough pose. So try it if you want. You could also just stay in your lunge, okay? So step your right foot forward, bring the block under your back thigh. So somewhere above your knee. And then take your hand to the back of your Achilles tendon and work your shoulder under. You can stay there or plant your right palm. And then eventually start to sneak that foot out. Maybe you go airborne and you rotate that thigh in and lift the back leg. And we are rooting down to fly, right? So we're just using the ground and the leverage here to try and get that back leg off the ground. All right. Slowly start to bring yourself out. And let's move back to child's pose. So this is the hardest part tonight. We're almost done. Remember, do what you can, do what works in your body. Okay, let's try our other side. Tabletop position, left foot forward, block comes under the back thigh. And maybe you're just staying there working that lunge. Or bring the left hand to the back of your Achilles tendon, work your shoulder under. You can stay there working that shoulder under, or left palm comes down. Start to sneak your foot out to the side. Maybe it goes airborne. Maybe the back leg goes airborne. Play with that for a moment. Do what you can. Nice work. All right, slowly release, child's pose. All right, so from here, we're gonna be staying close to the ground as we've been doing. Come back to table. And let's take one down dog. Get off the knees for a moment. And then pigeon pose, right knee forward. Left leg back. Some of you might need to have a little support under your right sit bone. You can put a block, a pillow, a blanket if you need it, okay? All right. So hug the inner thighs together. That'll give you a little bit more neutral pelvis here. So we're trying to square the hips forward. And then maybe you're going to come all the way down toward the earth. Your forehead might rest on your arms or a block. And if you don't like pigeon pose, do a figure 4 on your back, because that'll take all the pressure out of the knee. So please be safe. And if pigeon's not appropriate for you, you'll do more of a reclined pigeon, which is figure 4. We're going to take a couple more breaths here. Okay, slowly start to come up onto your hands. We're going to shift toward your front sit bone, your right sit bone, and bring the back leg around in the front. So we're in a cross leg position. Keep your blocks nearby. So Sukhasana, cross the legs. Inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, hands to the floor in front of you. Think about your sit bone scooting back behind you, and you can stay here or fold in. And maybe if you're close enough, you can make a block tower. Any height you want. Let's try to rest the head on something. As we bring the head to solid, we're bringing earth to the head. And when we bring earth to the head, it can be grounding for our mind, calming for our thoughts. But if you can't reach it to a block, no worries. Just do what you can. Some of you are going to stay in this pose for a few more rounds of breath. Some of you are going to progress this to fire log. So fire log, we're going to take the left shin on top of the right shin. And we stack up the shins like fire logs. Both feet are flexed. We're going to kind of scoot the sit bones back. And if this is too much, stay in the first pose, because again, this one can be challenging for the knees and the hips. You might need to stay upright once you do fire log, or some of you again could fold over the legs. And again, never force anything. Maybe your head is on a block. You might just keep that left shin in front for Sukhasana. And let's take 2 more breaths. Every exhale, just surrender into the earth. Okay, slowly start to come up and then keep the left leg bent, extend your right leg. So I'm not going to mirror because the sequence can be a little tricky for me for mirroring. So your right leg is extended. Okay, so it's like Janu Shasana. Some of you might need that block under the knee. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold over your straight leg. Remember your head and neck from last week, chin in, back of the neck long. Hold it here another breath or 2. So we're doing these poses that are low to the ground, staying with stillness, staying with your breath. And then slowly start to come up. Bring the left foot to the floor and cross it over the right. You can stay here or take your right leg and fold it back. And then we're going to hug the shin no matter which version we came into and try to sit up tall. Lengthen up through the back of your neck. And then we're going to twist toward your left. So right hand is going to pull that left leg in toward the midline. Reach the left arm up. Inhale. Exhale, twist to your left. Good. Staying here. Some of you might take your elbow, your right elbow past your left knee to get a little bind. Now, if you have to round your back to get there, I'd rather have you just hold your shin. Because for me, my upper arm's not quite long enough. I can do it, but I almost feel like I got to force it. Okay, next inhale, back to the center. Keep that left leg crossed over and straighten your right leg out. And this time, pull that knee across. So you're almost lining up your 2 knees. The right foot is flexed, and we're going to squeeze those inner thighs together. And when we work the adductors, we strengthen the pelvic floor. Keep that squeeze of the inner thighs. Reach your arms up. Inhale. Exhale, fold over your legs again. Now, if this is too much, go back to the foot on the inside of the leg. You can repeat that as well. Because this one really pins your thigh down. It can be tough on the knees, so listen to your body. Okay, slowly start to come back up. Right leg is going to bend, and now we're in Gomukhasana, so we're stacking the knees. This is a pose that can be challenging, so maybe you're going to sit up on a block. It's going to make it more accessible. You can also go back to just crossing your left shin in front. And then again, squeeze those inner thighs. Try to sit up tall. Reach your arms up. And then fold over your legs. And we've got a few breaths here. Every exhale, get heavier toward the ground. Okay, slowly start to come up. Uncross your legs, feet in front of you. Boat pose, lift your shins and your feet. You're balancing on the backs of your sit bones. Try to keep your chest lifted, your shoulders back. Some of you might reach your arms forward. Some of you might straighten your legs. You can stay here, any version you like, or lower down into a low boat, balancing on your sacrum. Shoulders are up, feet are up, and then back up to boat. Cross your shins and come around into downward facing dog. And we will do that whole sequence on the other side. So take a moment in your dog, stretch your legs out. And we will start from pigeon pose. So left shin forward, right leg back. Again, you might do your figure 4 on your back if this bothers your knee. You could also try putting something under your left hip or sit bone. A little folded blanket or pillow can really take some of that strain out. Maybe you're staying up, maybe you're gonna fold down. And see if you can get the head on something, a block or your hands if you're folding. And surrender into the earth. Breathe low and slow into your lower belly. Lengthen out your exhalations. We're going to work more with that at the end with those long exhalations. All right, slowly start to walk back up onto your hands, lean toward your left sit bone, bring your right leg around, and we're back in our cross legs. Feel free to sit up on something if you prefer. Okay, widen out your sit bones. We want to feel like the pelvic floor is on the ground. Inhale, reach the arms up. And as we come forward, you start to roll toward the front of your sit bones and the pelvic floor is kind of drawing back. Remember here, maybe we want to put something under the head. Let the head get heavy, even if it's not supported. Some of you are going to stay there. Some of you are going to come up and come into fire log. Right shin on top of the left shin, both feet flexed. Get those sit bones a little back and apart. Maybe you need to stay upright for your knee and your hip, or maybe you're going to hinge forward again. And maybe supporting the head. All right, slowly start to come up. Right leg's gonna stay bent, extend your left leg. Janu Shirshasana, maybe supporting the knee if it's hanging out in the air. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold over your straight leg. Couple of breaths here. Chin in, back of the neck long. Staying about 3 to 5 breaths in all of these poses, depending on your length of breath. We're going to slowly start to come up. And then right knee is going to come up, foot flat, and we're going to cross it over. And you can stay like that or fold the other leg back. And then hug your shin, sit up nice and tall, try to level out your hips. And then we'll come into a twist to your right. So pull that knee in toward midline, reach your right arm up and twist. Inhale a little taller, exhale, twist. And some of you might cross that arm over if you want to go a little deeper. Breathing here. All right, so coming back through center, we're going to keep the right leg crossed over, extend the left leg out straight, and try to stack the knees. So it's like half Gomukhasana, sometimes it's called half shoelace. We're going to reach the arms up and fold over the leg. Remember, if this is too much, come back to the Janu Shirshasana, the foot inside the leg. Chin in, back of the neck long. That top leg is grounding the bottom thigh. Good, slowly start to come up, and now we'll come into the full Gomukhasana. So the straight leg is going to bend back, and we're stacking both the knees. You may need to sit up on a block or a prop, or come back to cross legs. We're going to squeeze those inner thighs together and sit up tall. And again, if this is too much, feel free to take Sukhasana, fold again. Some of you are going to stay there or fold over your legs. Maybe you're going to support your head. Good, slowly start to walk yourself up, uncross the legs, come into boat pose. We're gonna balance on the sit bones, lift the shins and feet. Maybe you're gonna stay here holding the legs. Maybe you're reaching your arms forward. Maybe you're straightening your legs. You might stay here or try your low boat, lower down, balance on your sacrum. Get as low as you want, and then back up into your boat. And then soles of the feet together. Inhale, lift your chest. Exhale, bound angle, maybe another fold. Sit bones are drawing back. Again, opening up inner thighs. Area of the connection to the pelvic floor. Check in with the back of your neck, 2 more breaths. All right, let's slowly start to come up, and we'll draw the knees up. And let's go ahead, come down onto your back and hug the knees into the chest. Let's make some circles or rocks. And you can stick with this or move into happy baby if you prefer. All right, so we are going to get ready for Shavasana. And we're going to start with a guided breath practice before we completely release. So find a comfortable position for your Shavasana with any props you might like to use. Maybe something under your head or your knees. Maybe we're going to cover up with some blankets. And I'll give you guys a moment to settle. Once you come onto your back, have a sense of releasing, surrendering into the earth, into the ground. Let your body be heavy, and let the energy of the earth also come up into your body. And just imagine that that earth energy could replenish you. You did a lot of focus on the lower body, the legs, the hips, the pelvic floor, the inner thighs. All of that is grounding energy to work below the navel. Now working with the breath to give us that sense of groundedness and safety. So we know if we are in fight flight, we're going to have a more shallow breath, and we're going to favor our inhalations, because sometimes when we're in fight flight, we go into more of a hyperventilation kind of breath. So if we flip that and start to extend our exhalations, it can really help move us more into parasympathetic and help calm the nervous system and help us feel more grounded. So let's begin by just establishing a nice even breath. So go ahead and inhale for about 4 or 5 counts, and then exhale the same. So we start by just regulating an even inhale and exhale. Because if we start to go for that really long exhale right away, it might make us feel a little uncomfortable in our breath. So even inhale and exhale to begin. Now we'll start to add a brief pause at the top and the bottom. So we'll inhale for our 4 or 5 counts, pause for maybe a beat or 2, and then exhale the same count and stay empty for a beat or 2. Not to the point where you get uncomfortable, but adding in those little pauses. So let's try that for a few rounds. Now, once you're comfortable with those pauses, let's try to extend the exhalation. Now, if it's too much for you, stick with that even breath. But otherwise, if your inhale is 4 or 5, make your exhale 6 or 7 with those pauses. So we'll inhale about 4 or 5 counts, pause, exhale 6 or 7, all the way out with that breath, and then pause, empty, and begin again. Let's do maybe another 2 or 3 rounds. The important part is getting to that lengthened exhale. If it doesn't, make you feel uncomfortable or strained with the breath. We want the breath to stay relaxed. And the longer exhales relate to this kind of releasing. The direction of energy is downward, apana, downward energy, which is more grounding. The exhales are more consolidating. It's another attribute to earth, is being solid and maybe consolidated. We did that when we squeezed our inner thighs together in the Gomukhasana pose. One more cycle. All the way out, stay empty for a beat or two. And then let's return to just a normal, soft breath. And just let everything melt into the ground as if you are just merging with the earth itself. Be visualizing the ground as like an earthy red clay. And that red clay contours the shape of your body, just kind of holding you as your body just sinks downward into that earthy clay. As if when you were to get up, there'd be an impression of your body. Have a sense of sinking into that clay. Letting it hold you. The back of the head be heavy. Your shoulders, your rib cage, your pelvis, and your legs and feet. And let this stillness and this heaviness, safety, all just be very nourishing for your body, your mind, your nervous system. I'm going to share a reading as you finish out these last couple minutes of Shavasana. And this is by Jeff Foster, called Where We Stand. And the beginning of it, kind of, to me, he's describing these things in life that tend to throw us off balance. And those kinds of things in life tend to deplete our earth element. So we have major changes in our life, or we have a major difficulty, or a loss. All of those kinds of things can throw us off, and then we are losing the ground beneath us. So where we stand, you are lost without hope. Your heart has shattered into a million tiny pieces today, and you cannot put the jigsaw puzzle of your life back together, no matter how hard you try. You no longer have a reference image. Doubts and questions rage like wildfire in the vast field of your being. You cannot find a place of connection anywhere. Even the birdsong at first light seems to be happening on a remote planet. Everything that seemed permanent has been smashed. All your certainties have melted into thin air, and nobody seems to have the answers. Not even the gurus and the self-help experts who once promised so much. This time I offer no words of guidance, no hope, no promises, no dream that this devastation will ever end. You are lost without hope, friend, and what is left is but a radical commitment to the ground on which you stand. A marriage of humility to the origin, your birthplace, and your final place of rest. Sometimes we fall apart, and in the midst of falling apart, we remember more clearly where our feet are rooted. The earth, the ground, held by gravity, always falling and yet somehow always supported. Sometimes we are brought to our knees and we remember our knees. And nothing has happened from the perspective of the ground, save for the bird song and the first light of dawn. So the earth is there, regardless of how chaotic our life gets, if we take the time to be still and to get stable and to breathe, we can calm some of that chaos in our mind and find our peace. The earth helps us find it. So we'll take a couple moments now and start to come back. Start to move slowly. Take your time. Hold on to that earth energy. If we move too quickly, that's bringing in a lot of that air, that instability. So let's go slow like earth and eventually come onto your side. And we'll come on up into a seated posture. Once you arrive there, widen your sit bones. Feel like your pelvic floor is just right on the ground so that you're stacked up through the center of your spine. Imagine through your sit bones, the pelvic floor, you're really rooted and grounded, as if your roots could just grow into the earth. And then close your eyes for a few breaths, if that's comfortable for you. Sometimes the spine, the body is kind of compared to a lotus flower blooming. And the chakras are often depicted as a lotus flower. So our base, our pelvic floor, our sit bones are the roots that grow into the muck, into the mud, down beneath the water. The lotus flower grows in the water, in the muddy water. And then the spine is like the stem of that flower, nice and fluid in the water. And then the head is like the blossom, the lotus flower blooming. And that represents the blooming of our consciousness, the awakening of our consciousness. So let the crown of the head reach toward the light, and the base of the spine reach toward the center of the earth. So we need those strong roots in order to expand and grow taller. Go ahead, bring your palms together. We'll bring our practice to a close. Take an inhale, exhale, bow inward. Namaste.